These UFOs are out here, man, and I want to find them.
Perhaps no one spends as much time on skyward mysteries as Jeff Woolwine.
But when these lights come on, it's like somebody with a switch on a wall. Boop. Here we are.
Woolwine's tours are free too, and you're free to believe or not.
Jeff Woolwine, the first person to do this. I think he's as honest as the day is long.
He describes his guests as top-notch, credible, and says Woolwine is one of the good guys.
Whether you believe in UFOs or not, there is something here. And they were here a long time ago. And their sightings is recorded on the mountain.
Hello, welcome back to another Petroglyphs in the Sky Ultimate UFO Show. I am your host, Jeff Woolwine. How is everybody doing today, tonight, this morning, wherever you're watching from? Glad that you're here with us today. Got a great show, and we're going to be doing part 2 of the light and shadow markers up on South Mountain in Phoenix, Arizona. You know, a lot of people didn't realize that there was even, rock art, petroglyphs from the first Hohokam Indians up there on the rocks of Phoenix, Arizona. Especially these sky watchers out here, these so-called UFO experts who like to talk about, UFOs and such, and especially the Phoenix lights. I was born here in Phoenix. Born and raised. I've been seeing these UFOs ever since I was a kid. Been seeing the lights when I was, in 5th grade playing catch football with my dad. I remember going to my grade school, 5th grade, and it was interesting too because I had a best friend of mine. He was a little Indian boy, and I was like, "Dude, did you see that light last night?" Right? And he's like, "Oh yeah, my grandfather." My grandfather says that those lights live in the mountains over there, and he points westward across the valley. He points west to the White Tank Mountains, right? Being just a kid, it just kind of just blows on by. You're like, oh wow, that's cool, yeah, whatever, right? Until you're growing up. And you actually start, investigating these things because everywhere you go, you're seeing these things in the sky. So you're like, dude, what's going on? Been studying archaeology since I don't know, 30 years. Been doing archaeology way before I became a ufologist. And I was like, dude, we got strange lights in the sky, and now we have strange markings out here on the mountains. Dude, there's got to be a connection, right? Phoenix, Arizona's past, dude. Went up on the mountains, found the petroglyphs, found the spread. Because we all know about the March 13th, 1997 Phoenix Lights event that happened on the west side of Phoenix. No evidence of anything going over the city. I know. I've been searching for the proof for over 20 years now. I haven't found any evidence of anything going over the city. I can't wait until someone actually provides credible proof that something went over the valley. I don't know. But the spread, not a V shape, anything, but an arc going across on the west side of South Mountain and kind of like connecting with the Australia Mountains on the west side And the Australia in Spanish is Star Mountain. And that's on the Indian reservation. Bet you didn't know that there was an Indian reservation right next door to Phoenix. Well, there is. And so, you know, I went up there on the mountains and I found the petroglyphs, and I found a Native American shaman, if you will, who works at a Native American museum in downtown Phoenix. Saw him on television talking about the petroglyphs. That's what gave me the idea that, look, wait a minute. There's got to be a connection here with these lights in the sky and with these markings out here on the rocks, right? Called the dude up, said, hey, man, saw you on television talking about the petroglyphs. Didn't exactly tell him what I was doing, you know. Didn't want to scare him away. But I was like, dude, I saw you on TV, you know, you're up there talking about the petroglyphs on South Mountain. Take me up there, brother. Let's talk about this, you know. Spent about a few hours up there going over these petroglyphs, these spirals, talking about giants in Phoenix, Arizona, right? Talking about doorways for the spirits, right? Talked about lizard men, right? I mean, all this stuff was like, dude. I mean, it was all hitting me all at once, and I'm like, wow, you know, bam, 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 you know. And because of false information, you know, of a spaceship going over Phoenix, I'm still looking for, you know, I'm thinking these things are crafts, right? The lights are a spaceship. What we see in the skies are spaceships. You know, it didn't even dawn on me that what if the lights are actually, you know, like living creatures, like living light beings, right? And what if the day sightings are, you know, they're not spaceships, it's not technology, it's not crafts, but what if they're actually the being itself, the, you know, the entity, the creature, if you will, itself? Some say it has metallic, could be metallic skin, right? Because this creature flew by my window, second story window, facing the east side of South Mountain. This creature dropped from the sky, looked like a spider, flew right past me, right in front of me. I'm filming all of this. And I'm like, whoa. And when I zoomed in on everything, dude, it looked like he had skin. And, you know, he's flashing, right? And it's not really lights, but what if it's energy, right? What if all that stuff is energy? So, yeah, you know, I mean, it was like, you know, what, 10 years. I mean, I discovered all this in 2005. And it was like 10 years, 11 years after the fact when 1997 broke. And people are, you know, doing movies and doing books. But no one's talking about, you know, the history of Phoenix. No one's talking about the petroglyphs on the mountains, you know, until my discoveries. And, you know, when I brought this to the news, once I had evidence, once I have fact, not only did I find the spread of the Phoenix Lights rock art, you know, the 1997, March 13th, 1997 Phoenix Lights event. You know, the Indians saw it too, the Native Americans, the Hohokam Indians. They saw the exact same formation 1,000 years ago, and they recorded it on a stone. And as a matter of fact, I've got that stone on my book. It's the front page. It's a front cover, right? When you see that, you know, anyone who understands the Phoenix Lights, anybody who wants to, you know, investigate the Phoenix Lights, boom, they're gonna see that petroglyph on my front cover of my book and say, dude, that looks exactly like the 1997 Phoenix Lights event. Because these lights, these UFOs, is nothing new to Phoenix and to the world, actually. This is part of our history. It's always been here. The evidence have always been here. Whether it's in ancient scrolls, whether it's in rock drawings, cave paintings, right? The evidence has always been here. And it's like, it just boggles my mind on how some of these so-called UFO researchers just they examine it, they see it, right? But they're not exactly in tune with what their art is talking about. Because they're still saying technology, they are still saying crafts, right? And even though crafts could be real, don't get me wrong. You know, I have seen some things in the sky that could resemble a spaceship, could resemble a craft. I've seen two things. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it was. There's no evidence of that. What if it was creatures connected together? What if, you know, it looks like a black triangle, but what if it's just that creature? What if it's not technology, but what if the damn thing was alive? I'm not talking biological, because that's still people trying to say, you know, they understand it, they explain it, it's biological. No, it's not biological. It's something that you and I really don't understand yet, right? Or it has been covered up for us to not understand. You know, when we really look at Earth's history, when we really examine the facts, as far as, you know, these stone carvings and things that we find in Mexico and hieroglyphics and Egypt and all this other, you know, stuff that's out there. I mean, look at the Babylonian, the Baghdad battery. The Baghdad battery. Look it up. The Babylonians, man, they knew how to harness electricity, and they made a battery. That's why you don't find any soot within the pyramids in Egypt, because they had electricity. They had light bulbs, dude. Is that fantastic or what? And when we really examine the facts, you actually find out that man has reached the stars way before, you know, the Wright brothers, you know, inventing the airplane or you know, the Apollo moon landing and all this stuff. The evidence would suggest that mankind has been to the moon before. And it's not alien technology that got us there. It's these creatures that have already been here, who live among us. Because the Indians say, dude, they live in the mountains. And they're right. These things have always been with us since the beginning of time. When we really examine the texts and the history and the petroglyphs and the so-called folklore or stories and myths and legends, I mean, all this stuff had to originate somewhere. You know, maybe it was fact before it was legend, right? And so when we look at all this evidence hitting us in the face, you'll soon realize that mankind has lost at least 1,000 years of knowledge of everything. It's like we've forgotten. We have forgotten where we came from. We have forgotten all this stuff that was taught to our ancestors long ago. It's like been erased in history. It's been erased from our minds. And this is why we have so much stuff to our mind is unexplainable. Like how the pyramids were built, how the Baghdad battery was built, you know, how the Ark of the Covenant generated this power, right? All this stuff that's out there, that's evidence that we can clearly see. We can hold it, we can see it, we found it. The archaeologists are constantly digging all this stuff up. And we're like, duh. Because we've forgotten. Stuff has been covered up. Something has happened in which mankind has just either, you know, it's been erased from our mind or something. It's been covered up. They don't want us to know because, I mean, look what I'm dealing with here in Phoenix. I mean, I've talked with this archaeologist. I've been on the news with this archaeologist, and I'm telling you, look, why aren't you talking about the tombs that are buried out there on South Mountain? Why aren't you talking about how the Mayans were here on South Mountain? Why aren't you talking about how there's altars for sacrifice out there on South Mountain for these spirits of the earth and sky. What is up with you? How come you're not talking about the first park ranger, Charles Holbrook, in the 1930s, who was instructed by the Indians to take care of these tombs that are on South Mountain full of gold? What is the problem? This is the stuff that I'm talking about. The evidence is there, but we're not told about it. The only way we're going to find out about anything is we have to venture out on our own. The hell with what these archaeologists are telling us. The hell with what all these other people are telling us. You can't get anywhere with that. You have to do the stuff on your own. You have to go out there and venture out. You have to go out there in the field. You have to skywatch. You have to investigate. You have to physically go out there and find out for yourself what's going on, because that's the only way you're really going to learn. Not even from me, dude. Go out there and investigate this stuff on your own. Right? I can present all this stuff, but it's actually up to you to investigate it further. I mean, I can show you all the stuff that I found. But to really have it, you know, I mean, to really acknowledge it and sink in, I mean, you have to go out there and see it for yourself. I think that's what my book is all about, you know. It's what I've been saying all these years. You know, look, dude, don't rely on some of these, you know, just go out there and just look into this stuff for yourself. Look and you shall find. And once you find it, dude, you're going to say, dude, I mean, the whole outlook on the world and how everything is there and all this stuff will totally change, man, because you will soon realize that you've been lied to all these years when it comes to these textbooks and schooling and teachers and stuff like that. You know, all this stuff has been buried and covered up, and they don't want you to know about stuff like this. And that's what kind of hurt me, you know, trying to get this information out. I go to the news, my book is published, and it's showing tombs. It's showing the tombs. It's showing the sacrificing altars on South Mountain. It's showing Mayan art. It's talking about the first park ranger who knew about all this stuff. And I thought, well, you know, I take this to the news, it would open up a whole new case of worms. I mean, that's why the news jumped on me in the beginning in 2005 when I first discovered that the petroglyphs were talking about these UFOs, and I actually proved this. Because no one else has ever done that before. Oh, we think that the Native Americans were carving UFOs, you know, on the mountains and this and that. But no one has actually proven it. Nobody has taken the time. Yeah, I spent three years out there at South Mountain looking at a rock. I spent 3 years of my life looking at a mountain on the east side constantly. I didn't do anything. I had my camera out my kitchen window. I was up on the second floor. And when I wasn't watching the mountain, I was in the mountain, exploring it, discovering things, finding the altars, finding the tombs, finding the evidence of the giants, finding all this stuff that no one has talked about in 80 years. I photographed it. I brought the evidence down from the mountain. I brought the information down. I brought the sacred scrolls, the sacred texts, because that's what it is. These petroglyphs is our past, is prehistoric photographs of basically our history. Not the history that these people are telling us, but the history of the world, the history of what mankind had dealt with in the past. And it's something completely different than what these school teachers are telling us, what these archaeologists are telling us. You know, some of these, I mean, the archaeologists that are blowing smoke up everybody's butt. But there are a lot of these biblical archaeologists that are coming forward with this information in which, you know. But yeah, so I brought the proof down from the mountain. And I published the book and I brought it to the news. And the news, what did they do with it? You know, because I'm talking about history. I'm talking about petroglyphs. I'm talking about archaeology. You know they're going to give it to the archaeologist in Phoenix and get his information on it. And you know what he said? Nope, bury it. You guys can't talk about this. This you can't talk about this. And that's what cut me down. That's what shot me from doing any other videos, any other news reports on the news. Oh my God, I filmed so much stuff since then. And I continue to do it. News does not want to talk to me anymore. They would rather talk to somebody who hasn't done their homework, who still wants to say it's a mystery. Oh, the 1997 Phoenix Lights, what is it? Than actually talk to somebody who has been in the field, who has witnessed these things on a number of times, who has matched these Phoenix Lights to Phoenix, Arizona's history. And then some. They don't want to talk to you anymore. They want to talk to the Joe Blow over here who's filming it and who doesn't know anything. Because they don't want that information getting out. Why? Because, dude, it's a big secret. I have uncovered something here that is a hush-hush taboo secret. Even some of these Native American Indians out here in Phoenix, especially the guy that I learned all this stuff from. Because remember, I told you at the beginning, I didn't say anything to Dave Morris. That's his name. Pueblo Indian Art Museum in Phoenix. Check him out. Tell him Jeff sent you. Tell him Jeff Woolwine says hi. See what he does. Dave Morris, brother. What's up? Didn't tell him anything about who I was. I just said, look, I saw you on the news talking about the glyphs. Somebody says, oh, that stick-figure human man looks like he's looking up at something in the sky above his head. And Dave turned around and says, yes, that is part of our history, that is part of our interpretation, that our ancestors saw and recorded things in the sky. Well, dude, you just told me right there. Look, man, we got lights, and now we got markings, all right? That's talking about these lights, right? Okay. Not going to tell you who I am because I want to scare you away. Call you up. Let's do a little interview. I filmed it, right? I was smart. I filmed it. Got his permission, of course. Talked about the spirals, talked about giants, talked about the lizard people, talked about the spirits of the earth and sky. Does he say anything about spaceships? Does he say anything about little gray guys running around with big eyes? No. He's talking about doorways into the underworld. He's talking about giants that were turned to stone that you can still see up there on the Superstition Mountains in Phoenix. He's talking about sacrifice, talking about Mayans, talking about gold. And then when we get down off the mountain, my whole point, we get down off the mountain, I'm like, dude, are you familiar with the Phoenix Lights? And he's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, somebody a few months ago was filming him. I saw him on the news. I go, yeah, dude, that was me. He goes, that was you? And I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I'm going on this theory that these Phoenix Lights has a connection with these petroglyphs out here on this rock. And boy, things changed. When I told him that, he looked at me and kind of shut up. He didn't want to say anything else about it, right? And to this day, he won't go on the mountain with me again. I've called him up many, many times. I've even told him, look, I'm seeing him. Everything you described on the mountain and the carvings and stuff, I'm seeing it. What does it all mean, Dave? What does it mean? Oh, no. No. That's a touchy subject now. Uh-oh. It's all fine and dandy when it's like just a myth and story. But if someone's actually witnessing it in today's world, in today's society, that's a prophecy there. That's a big prophecy on more to come, on what's more to come here. That's a secret book that has been opened. And why? Why did he kind of like shut up on this? Why did he stop talking about this? Well, as years go on and I'm learning more and more about what happened to the Hohokam Indians. The Hohokams are the first people who lived here in Phoenix, who carved the rocks out there, who carved their UFO testimonies, who carved their UFO stories, who carved their prehistoric photographs of what took place in their time, in their day. once I started learning about them, and especially like their name, because the archaeologists are saying, well, the Hohokam people lived here in the valley for 1,000 years, and they were peace-loving people who never went to war with anybody, and they were masters of the canal systems, for that day, which they were, And then all of a sudden, they simply migrated somewhere else because it got too hot. But it doesn't give us any explanation on where they went. And the Pima name the Pimas named the Hohokam Indians, which the name means the people who are missing, the people who got taken away, the people who are gone. Because we don't know what happened to these people. If the archaeologists, if we're supposed to believe what the archaeologist says, that they simply migrated somewhere else, then we'd be able to find where they went. There's no evidence of that. I found graveyards out there on South Mountain. I found cemeteries. I found where the government has actually put golf courses on cemeteries out there in Phoenix around South Mountain. I've discovered that they've actually constructed a restaurant, and people are actually living on graveyards now, living on cemeteries on the east side of South Mountain. I found all these maps in the government department in Phoenix, Arizona's library. That's how I found all this stuff, I found cemeteries up there on South Mountain. But yet, there had to have been people to bury these other people, right? So where do they go, right? And when you talk to some of these Native Americans, elders, the ones that will talk to you, because like I said, this is a taboo subject. Not a lot of them who understand what's happening with us, who's understanding what's going on, who understand what these things in the sky are. They don't want to talk to you, especially going on camera. Because I've tried many, 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 many times of getting these people on camera, and they don't want to do it. They'll tell me one-on-one privately, but they won't go on camera. And rightly so, because they tell me, and the evidence tells me, that what had happened to these Hohokam people is they got taken away by the Phoenix Lights and the other things in the sky. That's what it boils down to. That is the biggest cover-up. That is the biggest secret of the earth, of the world. One of them, anyway. So when I'm talking to Dave, going, Dave, dude, what happened? Why am I seeing him now? What's going on? And he doesn't want to talk to me anymore? Because he was told when he was growing up, and his parents, when they were growing up, was told, and their parents was told, and so on and so on and so on, and generations was told what had happened to their people. Charles Holbrook, the first park ranger, writes in his journals. It's on my website. Check it out. It's on my website. Those of you who are following me on my YouTube channel, I put links on my website down below on my YouTube channel. Make sure it's the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. One word. All one word. Petroglyphs in the Sky is all one word. Make sure it's the Phoenix Lights in front of it. Now, you'll find my website. And on that, it talks about Charles Holbrook. Charles Holbrook writes, who he learned from the Indians at that time, that when the Hohokams first arrived here in this valley, now it wasn't always a dried up desert. It wasn't a desert at all. It was like a tropical-like landscape, and we can find the evidence all over the place, from the waterfalls on South Mountain, from also the water markings on the rocks, the weathering of some of these mountains. There was like a massive flood, but I'm jumping the gun here. But yeah, there's evidence that there was a flood here in Phoenix, and the whole valley was underwater. But I'm jumping the gun. We won't go into that yet. But when the Indians got here, they didn't know how to live. And so the story goes on to say that these creatures, these beings from the earth and sky, they came up out of the sand world. They came down out of the heavens. And they taught these people how to survive. And they taught these people the secret knowledge, the secret ways. Right? That's how we get some of these petroglyphs out here that are oriented towards the east side. We're going to talk about that. We're going to show petroglyphs on the light and shadows from the equinox and the solstice. That's how they knew. That's how they were able to carve all this stuff. It's because, you know, they weren't taught from extraterrestrials, but more like interterrestrials. Because when we look at the biblical text, when we look at these ancient texts, it tells us that these things came from the sky. They were thrown, right? They were thrown down. They were thrown out. They were cast out. It's about as far as I'm going to go into that. But they were cast down. Now, some of these, you know, Babylonian scrolls says that some had left and some stayed. And I believe that that's what the ones that had stayed is the ones that we're dealing with now. And, you know, nowhere in those biblical scrolls, in the Babylonian text, in the Anunnaki text, does it describe or say anything of spaceships or technology. It simply says some stayed and some left. And man, people had put in crafts, spaceships, technology. Because that's how they figured that they left. They must have left in a spaceship, right? They couldn't have just shape-shifted and flown off. No, that just doesn't make sense to people. They had to have had some kind of spaceship to get back and forth, right? And that's the problem that we're dealing with most of these skywatchers out here. It's because they're, you know, for so many years they see these lights out there and they see these things in the sky, and just because it's metallic doesn't mean it's his craft. What if that's the creature's skin? Right? What if it's like a shiny skin? And the Native Americans, they tell you that these things shapeshift. They change shape. They change colors. They like to look like men, right? So these things came up out of the sand world, and this is where these lizard people come from. The carvings on the rock, because they have this tail, right? So they naturally assume that it's like a lizard man because it has a tail. But on the rocks out here on South Mountain, you can see it on the front page of my website. These stick figure, man, they have like a circle in their belly, right? Like a little circle. And now some say that circle is them coming out of the underworld. They're halfway in our world and halfway into the underworld. But watching these things over the years and seeing what they do, I believe, and actually witnessing this, that circle in the belly of that lizard man, supposed quote-unquote lizard man, that circle, is the orb that we are seeing in the skies today. Is the phoenix lights, is a phoenix light, is an orb. White orb, black orb, light. And it's morphing, it's changing. It's growing into a serpent, an animal, a man. And that tail isn't a tail at all, but it's what it uses to carry things off into the sky with, or to merge with other orbs in the sky to form a barbell formation. Lots of barbells carved up on South Mountain, lots of barbells carved in drawings all over the world, rock art, lots of barbells. And it's from this line that some say is a tail from a lizard man, but it's actually a line. And that petroglyph that's on my website, the front page, actually has this line coming down from a lizard man, and he's taking a guy up. He's picking a man up by his head. There are so many petroglyphs out there on South Mountain depicting this, that these creatures, these lights, have this line that comes down and are picking animals up and are picking humans up. And so the story goes, so the Indians got here in Phoenix, and they didn't know how to live. So these creatures, they taught these people how to live, and everything was fine for 1,000 years. You know, they perform sacrificing. They worship these lights, you know, as gods. They understood that these beings in the sky came around in certain times of the seasons and certain times of the years, that they weren't always there with them, that they changed seasons. And so it was important to track the sun in the sky to understand when these beings were going to come back. And, you know, these archaeologists, of course, they want you to believe, okay, well, these light and shadow markers and these these sun markers where the sun, you know, comes up over this petroglyph or comes up over this rock, you know, is telling the natives that it's time to plant corn. Has nothing to do with planting corn. It has everything to do with these beings in the sky on their return and on when they were leave, and when they will be leaving. They're tracking the sun, and at that time they really didn't understand, because they say that these things are going into the underworld, right? Because Dave was teaching me that the spirals is a symbol for these spirits to go down into the underworld. The spiral come down next to a crack. He says that crack is the doorway, is the emergence point into the underworld. If the spiral ends up, then there's a vortex in the sky. It's like looking down into a hole. You see that? You see the spiral? It's like looking down into a hole. Okay? And it's a doorway into the underworld. That's what the myth is. That's what the natives say. But on scientific analysis, they're going down into this fault line. They're going down into this energy line, right? And that's what it's all about. It's all about energy. Because South Mountain was created by a fault line. That's what makes this mountain so special. That's what draws these entities, these Phoenix lights, these creatures, these UFOs to Phoenix, Arizona, and to these other places around the world, is because of the natural energy that it creates. Especially when the sun aligns with these fault lines during the changing of the seasons. I verified all this. When I was watching these things, when I was living out there in 2005, I lived about a mile away from South Mountain on the east side. I tracked it. I documented when these things were here, right? What time, what day, what month. And then I noticed that some months they were kind of gone. They were gone. And then other months they kind of came back. And it didn't really dawn on me until the second year when I was watching. And it repeated itself. Same months, same times. And that's when it dawned on me, wait a minute, hold the phone. And, you know, in between that whole year, you know, I'm documenting the light and shadow effects. I'm documenting, I'm exploring, you know, the changing of the seasons out there, on how the holocrons track the sun. So by the second time, the second year rolls around and it's repeating itself. It's like the same stuff. These things are here during the same months. It dawned on me, look, dude, they're following the seasons. They're following the sun. It was a pattern. And this pattern's been going on for thousands of years. That's the secret. Third year, oh my God, same stuff. I learned on how to track these beings, how to learn to track these beings on the mountain out there, simply by watching the mountain for many, many years. Hiking the mountain, understanding the sun, understanding the rock art formations, understanding the light shadows, understanding the holocron people, on who they really were. And it dawned on me, you know, look, you know, these things are after the energy, especially in 2004, right? Because I'm filming, that's when it kind of really all, that's when I really started to investigate these things, was in 2004. And so I'm hunting them down now. I'm on a quest, right? I'm chasing these lights. I'm finding out what's going on. I'm not just relying on hearsay, you know, from somebody selling movie tickets and a book about nothing. I'm doing my own research. You know, I'm out here on this, right? Some say a craft. Where to look. I knew how to look. I knew what direction, you know, because I studied all this stuff before. And it all paid off. Boom. You know, I'm staring off to the southwestern sky I'm in Mesa. I went to Mesa because there was a guy named Tom King. He was making the news a lot in 2003 and 2002 and stuff like that. You know, I just remember seeing him a lot, you know, prior to my investigations, prior to my hunt. You know, so I'm studying this guy, and I noticed that Tom King's out there in Mesa. Matter of fact, Tom King is one of the guys that originally filmed the Phoenix Lights 1997 on the west side of South Mountain, right? You don't hear about this guy no more, do you? It's all about what's her face. But you don't hear about Tom King. You don't hear about all these other people that filmed the lights on the west side because they saw lights prior to that, days before, so they're ready. So if anything flew over the valley, they would have got it. But nobody filmed anything going over the valley. They only filmed it on the west side. So in 2004, they're over here on the east side in Mesa. And these orange amber lights appeared in front of me, and they're moving. They're moving west because Mesa is on the east side of Phoenix. So they're moving west, right? And then they're disappearing. Two more would show up in front of me. I'm filming all this, right? This is great. It's the very first time I'm filming these lights, you know, shaky. I'm like, dude, oh my God, right? you know how you get, you know, you look, oh my God, dude, there they are, right? They're going towards the mountain. Disappear. So I kind of followed them. They're telling me where to go. When I look back at everything, it's only obvious. They were showing me where to go. They were moving. They were appeared. They wanted me to see them in front of them. They appeared in front of me. They knew I was there waiting for them. And they appeared in front of me and moved towards the mountain. This is way before I knew about, you know, the petroglyphs, the mountain, blah, blah. So I followed them. And I couldn't get very far. So I went to Mesa Community College. And there they had a set of bleachers. And I climbed up on those bleachers real high up in the sky. And I could see the whole valley. And I said to myself, this is the perfect spot to watch for the lights. And lo and behold, again, right there in front of me. They weren't moving this time. I mean, because I could see South Mountain. South Mountain was like right there, right? And about a mile away, maybe 2 miles away, they were appearing, they were showing up right there in front of me over this certain spot. Now, these things were like just like kind of magically appear in the sky. I mean, they're stealthy. They know how to get away with stuff. That's what they're doing. That's how they're not being noticeable. You know, they're coming in real low. They're not high in the sky. They're not streaking, zigzagging across the sky. They don't make any noise. They don't cast any shadows, right? They're secretly coming in, coming through that vortex, coming through that door. They appear. And they're ever so slowly moving, okay? Because when I go back and I speed up the film, you can see them. Boop. I mean, they're moving fast, dude. And when you speed up the film. But when you're looking at it at real time, they're like clock, dude. They're slow as shit, man. You know, until they get over this certain area. Now, what area is that? My point? It's a power plant. It's a natural power plant. This power plant is bored down into the fault line of South Mountain. And they're hanging over that power plant. So that power plant, it's over there on Ray Road. Those of you who want to investigate this, the power plant is on the east side of South Mountain, and it's on Ray Road. Okay, check it out. If you guys are gonna go on a quest and hunt for these lights, look for them on the east side. Look for them on the west side. Especially the changing of the seasons. We'll get into that later. But yeah, that's the two hot spots on that mountain, is the east side and the west side. Back to my point. So we all verified. We talked about the energy. We talked about the changing of the sun. Talked about the fault lines. Okay. Indians knew this. That's why they made these light and shadow markers. Not to plant corn, but to understand when these beings are going to be back. So this went on for 1,000 years. And then sacrificing was going on for the changing of the seasons to bring these spirits back, bring these beings back. The bloodshed of man pouring down these holy rocks, this holy mountain. Sacrifice. Until one day, and for reasons unknown, I'm still looking into it, probably never find out why, they stopped the sacrifice. Everything was like green and grass and water, and everything was hunky-dory. Not a desert 1,000 years ago. Not a desert at all. But a tropical-like landscape. Plenty of water. Plenty of fruit and trees and shade and paradise. Until they stopped that blood sacrifice down this holy mountain. Now when that did, when they stopped the sacrifice, that's when things started to dry up. It got so dry, now look at it. It's a desert. And the tribal men at that time were screaming at their leaders, "Why did you stop the sacrifice? Look what's going on. You have upsetted the spirits. The spirits are mad at us. We have stopped the shedding of man's blood on this holy mountain. Now things are dead. Why did you stop the sacrifice?" That's when these things came from the east. And some of these Native Americans, and Charles Holbrook writes in his journals, in his papers, that some of these Native Americans says that the devil came from the east and took these people away. That's exactly what these petroglyphs are talking about out there. I find petroglyph rock drawings of these lights with these lizard tails, if you will, picking people up and carrying them off into the sky. Matter of fact, sometimes in some of these petroglyph panels, they're actually playing a game. They played games with these phoenix lights. They played games with these creatures of the earth and sky. These beings would come down, pick men up, and carry them around in the clouds and fly with them. You know, that reminds me, you know, in Mexico, you see that pole, that real tall pole, and these men are swinging by their feet, okay? That is a representation of what occurred with these beings in the sky. That's exactly what it's talking about. They're flying from a line in the sky. They're flying around like that. That's a representation of what kind of game they were playing with these phoenix lights, with these UFO entities in the sky. So they took a lot of them away, and the priest, the leaders, knew that it was wrong to stop the sacrifice. So the story goes on to say Holbrook, the first park ranger, learned this from the natives, and he says that the chiefs, I don't want to say chiefs, the leaders sacrificed themselves on the altars because they knew it was wrong. Now, the people that survived this Holocaust, that survived this massacre, that survived this rapture, if you want to call it a rapture, were afraid, and they knew that they messed up, and they knew that this was a cursed land. So they buried their gold in all these tombs on the mountain out here. Charles Holbrook writes, this gold was as high as the tallest saguaro cactus and was as round as the sun. And there's so much gold that's buried in these mountains. And the myth, the story says that the Phoenix Lights is guarding the gold on that mountain. The Phoenix Lights is watching the gold on South Mountain. Why? Because they know eventually the Mayans is going to come back, open up these tombs to reclaim the gold and have everything start over again. That's the big picture. That's the big story. So they buried the gold. They cursed this valley, saying, whoever is going to live in Phoenix, Arizona, we call it Phoenix, whoever's going to live in this valley is going to eventually have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and sky. And they were afraid. And they got the hell out of Dodge. They went back to their homeland, back to Mexico. They stopped off at Casa Grande. They taught those people how to make canals. And then they went on back to Mexico. And for 400 years, nobody lived in this valley of the sun. It was a cursed land. Eventually, over the years, the Native Americans did start to come back and start to live back on this land. But that was like hundreds of years later. So, that's the story. That's the history of Phoenix that, over 15 years of research, I have dug up. And when it comes to these Phoenix lights, when it comes to these entities, when it comes to these creatures, like I said before, and like I said earlier, I kind of went off point, that man has reached the moon before. And it wasn't because of extraterrestrials, but it was more of interterrestrials teaching these people how to reach the moon. So when we look at some of these, some of this art, right, especially like in Mexico, especially, let's look at the moon pyramid in Mexico. Okay, the sarcophagus on where this guy was buried at, when they finally got into that tomb, the sarcophagus, everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's got this Mayan, okay, and it looks like he's in a spaceship. He's got the breathing, oxygen tubes and stuff. He's got his foot on a gas lever, it looks like. He's got his hand on a gear shift. There's flames coming down, right? You all know what I'm talking about, all right? Now, why would they, put that on a sarcophagus, right? On the moon, a moon pyramid. That's where they found this at, right? And so we find some of these other statues with space helmets, with like NASA helmets, okay? And is it aliens inside that NASA helmet? Or is it aliens in that helmet? No, it's a man. It's a human face. It's a Mayan face. It's not an alien face. It's a Mayan face. So yes. Oh, and another thing. Here's something very significant. And it's very hard to find this information, but it's out there if you really dig deep enough. They found mica in Mexico in the moon's pyramid. Mica. Mica is not native to Mexico. Mica comes from way the hell across the seas. Mica, that metal, and what's the significance to mica? Well, it just so happens that NASA uses mica on their space shuttles to re-enter Earth's atmosphere, to absorb that heat. So why are they finding mica in the pyramid of the moon? It's stored away. That information's been locked away. It's still there. They have it, locked in a little chamber. And they hardly ever talk about that, but it's there. So, yeah, it's not extraterrestrial, but more interterrestrial. And like I said before, it's very possible, I get it, that, crafts and people from another planet has visited Earth. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened. I'm just saying there isn't any evidence of this. I'm looking at all the stuff that the Earth and Earth's history has provided us up until this point. And I think technology and spaceships and green guys and stuff like that is people, because it started off like that, because that's what they understand. They understand technology. But if you come back and say, look, dude, that's a supernatural being, man. That's a creature, right? He is higher than man. People won't understand that too much. They understand more technology. Okay, that light up there, that's a craft, dude. And there's a guy controlling that light. I know that. because I understand technology. That's what it is. But they're not looking at these. They're not looking at these biblical texts. They're not understanding the Babylonian texts. They're not understanding what the Anunnaki is telling us. They're not understanding what the petroglyphs are telling us. They're not understanding what the Native Americans have been saying to us all these years. That these are spirits, these are creatures, these are living entities. I don't see any spaceships on carved up there on the rocks of South Mountain. I've been all over the place. I've been on all these mountains around Phoenix. I've investigated all this rock art. I haven't found any evidence of spaceships or green guys. I see these orbs and these flying serpents, Quetzalcoatl, mimicking man, trying to look like a person, lizard man, growing arms and legs, things like that. But I don't see man interacting, walking around with an alien in his hand or things like that. There's a lot of people sending me all this art of spaceships and statues of flying saucers and gray aliens and stuff, and they're trying to say it's real. That's all fake, dude. That's not real stuff. That's a hoax. So, but I'm not saying that it's not possible. So don't get me wrong on that. I'm just saying I'm just saying that there's not any evidence of this. Sure, the scientists now, 8 planets now that could resemble Earth outside of our solar system? That has, could be a Class M planet, oxygen, nitrogen. Sure, why not? I'm open. Why not? Somebody up there made a spaceship, visited Earth. Cool. Let's see the proof. Wow, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's start talking about other stuff. Okay, let's move on. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and I should have never gone into that. Okay, so I run another show called Haunted Encounter Adventures. I have another YouTube channel. Check me out on YouTube, Haunted Encounter Adventures. Not only do I have, my UFO channel, the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky that you see down below. Make sure it's all one word, Petroglyphs in the Sky. Okay, and make sure it's got the Phoenix Lights in front of it. Okay, that's me. Just Petroglyphs in the Sky, that's not me, that's an imposter. Don't follow that guy. He's wrong. Follow this guy here, the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. Now, I do a ghost hunt. I do paranormal investigations also. It's something new I've been doing for the past year or so. So yeah, Haunted Encounter Adventures. Kind of want to plug my little thing there. So yeah, find me on Facebook also, Haunted Encounter Adventures, and then find me on. Okay, you're gonna have to excuse me just for 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. The mailman brought me a package, so I had to sign for it. Okay. Sorry about that brief intermission. Okay, so Haunted Encounter Adventures. Check me out there. I'm working on a new episode. It's called the Dismemberment at the Blue Mist Hotel, and this is not for the squeamish at heart. This this episode is very squeamish. So those of you who have a weak heart or a weak whatever, I would not be watching this next episode that's coming up. But I have done other episodes, so check that out. Okay, what's this? Okay, this is my book. The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. And as you can see right there, what I was talking about is the 1997 Phoenix Lights spread. Right there, front cover. Anybody and everybody who understands what the Phoenix Lights, the original Phoenix Lights looked like back in 1997, March 13th, 1997, will understand what that rock art is. And you know what? You know what the archaeologist says that art is? He says it's the cycle of the moon. That's too many dots there to be the cycle of the moon. But that's what he's trying to tell people. We all know that is wrong. The Phoenix Lights, Landscape for the Spirits. As a matter of fact, I got me a copy right here. It's got all kinds of neat stuff in there. Colored photographs, right? Evidence. Color photographs. Light and shadow markers, which we're going to talk about today. Look at this. We're going to show this in our show today. Well, yeah, great book. Talks about the history of Phoenix, Arizona. It's not a regular UFO book, if you will, but it's a history. It's a history tour on what Phoenix, Arizona really is, and how to understand the petroglyphs. And it also explains on what the Phoenix Lights is. Okay. The Phoenix Lights, Landscape for the Spirits, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix. Find it on eBay or, what is that, ebook? Okay, so check these guys out here, right here. 4 real radio show watchers live. Jerry and Brett, these guys are rocking, excellent guys. They have their own show. Contact them if you had any paranormal experiences, if you have any UFO experiences, if you guys want to talk about anything, contact these guys. They are a great bunch of guys, and they'll have you on their show. So yeah, 4 real watchers radio show worldwide live. I'm telling you guys. These guys are great. Contact them and see what they're all about. Great people. Awesome guys. Thank you so much for sponsoring me. Okay. Uh-oh. What do we got here? Vulture City Paracon Part 2 coming at you live this year, October 8th, 9th, and 10th. Look at all these people that are going to be there. Even more. They're adding more daily that I see on Facebook. So it's not just these people here. I mean, there's going to be more people showing up at this Paracon. It's going to be a ghost hunt. And Jane Marie Yates, great people. Get a hold of them for your tickets. Contact Vulture City Mines for your tickets. Make sure you get your tickets fast because they're all going to be sold out, by the time, the event actually takes place. So make sure you get your tickets early. I'll be out there doing a ghost hunt and a UFO, first time ever out there at the Paracon. This year only. Well, probably going to have more. Hopefully they have more. But first time ever, UFO hunt, Skywatch out there with yours truly, Jeff Woolwine. I'm going to be out there signing autographs, talking about UFOs with people. Come on down. Let's have a chat. Let's talk about UFOs. Let's talk about petroglyphs. Let's do a sky watch together out there in Vulture City. Paracon Part 2 is going to be great. They have a whole line of great speakers that are going to be there. And I'm just so stoked and honored that I'm going to be, again, a part of it. I was there the first time, and it was great. And so lots of history. If you guys like old buildings and ghost stories and ghost hunts and oh my God, if you guys just love history, check this out. This is the place to be at October 8th, 9th, and 10th at the Paracon, Vulture City Mines. Make sure you get a hold of J. Marie Yates and tell him Jeff Woolwine sent you. All right, guys, let's get into it. I've spent enough time talking about other stuff, so let's get into these light and shadow markers, right? So these are on South Mountain. So my last show, I talked about how there were rocks, right? These boulders that were teeter-tottering on each other. This is what I was talking about. Check this out. Look at this. This is from a distance, okay? Look at these boulders, right? Okay, so the east is on the right side of your screen. Okay, so they're facing east. And they've been picked up and placed there. Look, how heavy do you think those rocks are, man? Look at the size of those boulders, dude. What the hell, right? And so they're teeter-tottering. They're just like, they're like on an angle. Where's the camera at? They're like at an angle. They're sitting like this. They're not flat. They're sitting like this, as you can tell. Here's a closer look. Look at the boulders. Look at that. Look how precisely they are balanced. Do you see that? Do you see how they're balanced like that? And so when you look like right in front of it, this isn't a very good photograph. This isn't a very good example photograph. But you can see a pyramid in the background. See that hill? Right in the background there, the two arrows, and then right in the background you see that hill. So when you're looking head on in between this valley of rocks or whatever, in between the boulders, it aligns perfectly with that pyramid hill in the background, okay? That's significant. All right, that's not just by chance. I mean, the Indians back then, the Holcomb Indians just didn't do anything by accident. Everything out there is for a reason. All right, so especially like the petroglyphs, if a coyote is looking one way, you want to go that way because he's pointing you on where the next story is. All right, so everything happens for a reason. The deer, some of the deer's antlers, okay, are actually maps. They're maps on where to find other petroglyph rocks, other sacred areas on the mountains. So it's just not by chance. Everything out there is for a reason. And these boulders are for a reason. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. We're going to show you. But look at that. Look how precisely. And yes, I found plenty of evidence. And you can look at my Facebook page, Jeff Woolwine, Petroglyphs in the Sky. I just reposted petroglyphs of giants. And in some of my past shows, I talk about the giants, right? Especially this huge, massive wall that I believe that was built by giants back then. Because, I mean, look at the stones, dude. Now, did the Holcomb Indians, have machinery? Did they have boulder or big tractors and cranes and stuff like that to pick boulders up and place them on rocks and this and that? I mean, how did they do this, right? The only explanation for stuff like this is somebody very big and with a lot of knowledge, because these boulders has been sitting there for over 1,000 years and they haven't tipped over yet. They're sitting there and they haven't tipped over. This is some of the stuff that it's sitting on. Look at those rocks. You see that? Those rocks have been placed there to balance these boulders. This isn't by chance. This is man-made. Somebody very smart, somebody very big has done this. Oh, here's the same picture. Here we go. Here's another angle of it. The small rocks are holding these boulders in place. Now, is that incredible or what? How in the hell did they do this? Look at that. These things are sitting there so precisely, and all that's really holding them up are these little stones? Is that possible? It must be, because it's there. There it is. I've been there. I took these photographs. That's what's going on here. That is what the evidence is suggesting, that these boulders were picked up and someone had the knowledge to, and I mean, this is incredible. It's just when you really look at what's going on here, it just boggles the mind. I'm like, dude. I mean, these boulders are huge stone. Hundreds, maybe a ton. I don't know, but it's heavy. And they're teeter-tottering there. And it's been sitting there for over 1,000 years. Well over 1,000 years, for sure. Now, here's what there's a petroglyph panel in front of them. Up on top, those are the boulders up on top. And then this is the petroglyph that's in front of them. Now, this is a light and shadow marker. That's what the boulders are all about. All right, so when the sun gets in the 12 or 1 o'clock position in the sky during the equinox, it'll cast a shadow down, and it'll end in this crack here. But look at the petroglyphs here. So now we have an elongated head. Look at that guy. Examine the petroglyph here. This is South Mountain. This isn't Peru. This isn't Egypt. That is a guy with an elongated head, looking up at what? A barbell. See that barbell UFO there? He's looking up. He's got his hands on his brow. He has his hands on his waist. And he's looking up at a flying UFO barbell. And then right above him, see the orb? You see that orb there right above his head? Let's examine this for a minute. Let's take a hard look at this. Let me zoom this in a little bit more. Let's take about as far as I can go with this. Remember how I was talking about the tails? Remember the tails? Remember the circle in the middle of the lizard man body? Remember the orb I was talking about? There's a perfect example of that. You see the orb, okay, right above this guy's head, the elongated head. You see a line coming down from an orb, and it's picking that guy up by its head, and he's also picking up a deer. Look at that. Another line coming from that UFO orb is picking up a man with an elongated head, a long head like the skulls that we see in Peru, I believe it is, in India and things like that. And he's also picking up a deer with that line. You see that? That's exactly what I'm talking about here. We have other carvings here of animals. And then the spiral. Look at the spiral. That is a doorway. Okay, it's a serpent. But look how the artist is including the crack, including this natural crack. So, and look at it, it's a spiral. He's making it it's a serpent. It's Quetzalcoatl. It's a flying serpent, but it's a spiral doorways. And look how it's ending. It's going into the crack there. This crack is the emergence point for this being, for this serpent, for the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl. And yes, folks, Quetzalcoatl was alive and well and flying around Phoenix, Arizona. I have filmed him many times. This is a prehistoric photograph of what the artist is basically trying to tell us is a serpent comes out of these doors. So what? It's going what? Clockwise. Counterclockwise, excuse me. So it's a doorway out. That's the bottom one. And then up on top is going counterclockwise. So it's a doorway in. We have T spirals there in the shape of a serpent. And it's emerging with the crack of the stone. And so the artist is trying to tell us that this crack in the stone is the doorway, an in and out emergence point to the underworld in which a flying serpent comes and goes from. That is the interpretation. That is the meaning of this rock here, of this petroglyph. That's exactly what it's talking about. Here we have another orb. There, a UFO. Isn't that interesting? And it's funny too, because like the archaeologist, right, in his book, in the Phoenix archaeologist book, it's funny too, 'cause like he only puts like very small colored photographs of petroglyphs in his book. I think there's only like maybe 5 pages of photographs of these petroglyphs on the mountain. The rest he has drawn. He has drawn in. Why? Because he's leaving stuff out. He wants you to think, okay, this is what the petroglyphs are talking about, you know? So he's putting in his own, he's lying. Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. He's lying. He's drawing petroglyphs in his book. He's physically drawing them. He's leaving stuff out. When it comes to this panel here, he doesn't put the elongated head in that. He leaves it. He puts a regular head. In his book, he draws it like it's a regular man. There's other parts in his book where he draws the petroglyphs. He talks about the petroglyphs and he draws it. He doesn't show a photograph. Because if he shows a photograph, then what he says is the photograph isn't matching up to what he says. So what he says, his interpretations, what he wants people to believe, he only puts in what he wants you to see. That's why he draws his petroglyphs in his book. He doesn't show photographs like I do. He shows 5 pages of photographs, and they're real small, and it's very hard to see the petroglyphs. The rest he draws. He physically draws them in his book, and he leaves out stuff. For instance, there's a petroglyph out there, and there's a 4-armed stick-figured guy, and he's shooting up at a flying snake. He leaves that part out. He doesn't draw that in. He leaves that out. Why? He's covering up stuff. Isn't that crazy? And that's what the 2 boulders, that's facing. So right now, when we're looking at the petroglyphs, you know, when we're straight on. So when we're looking at this, the east side. The east side is the right side of the panel, is the right side of your photograph, the right side of the photograph, and the west is the left side. And those 2 boulders are sitting on top of it, oriented towards the summer, or to the morning sunrise. Okay, so here's another light and shadow rock art. Now look at this. Okay, look at these boulders. Right, this is from a distance. This is off a baseline road. Okay, this is like in a valley. All right, so these are boulders that have been placed there, and has been chipped away at. So the Hohokams, they took these huge boulders, and they made this formation. They made this rock formation. Okay? They placed all these boulders here for a reason. All right? And it's sitting out there in a valley. When you look at the photograph, let me zoom out of this. When you look at it, it's in a valley. Whoops. Wrong thing to move. It's like a big open area on where they made this at. And it's because they want the sun. It's because of the sun. They want the sun to hit these rocks. They want the sun to hit these boulders. Right? That's why they made this. This isn't natural. These boulders out here in this valley isn't natural. They picked these boulders up somehow and they placed them there. They created this rock boulder formation out there in this valley to capture the sun. Okay? Now this is what the sun does during the equinox. Okay? It makes this shadow on the side of this area. So the sun is to the east of us. We're looking west of the boulder, and the sun is behind me, and it's on the east, okay? Now, if you look real closely, let's look at these rocks here. You see how they've been cut away? You see all the chip marks there? Look at the zigzag chip marks there. You see that? They cut these rocks. Look at that. Look at that zigzag in the middle there, in the middle of your screen. You see that? They cut all these rocks out. They chiseled all this stuff out. So they picked up these boulders and they placed them together, and they chipped all this stuff out. You look over here to the right. Now, yeah, to the right of your screen there, the little chip. All this stuff. And you know what? They didn't just throw away. Oh, there's a petroglyph. There's a petroglyph guy right there. Right there on the left there. They didn't just throw away all the debris. They just didn't throw away all the chip marks, all the rock debris. They left it there. They kept it. All that chisel away stuff, all the debris that they chiseled away, they gathered it up and they placed it behind this boulder. Everything is still there. They just didn't throw it away or clean it up, or, you know, they picked it all up and they placed it, all the debris that they chipped away to make this shadow effect. And they placed it behind these boulders. It's all there. It's all there today. It's still there today. Now let's examine the shadow effect. Here you can see a profile. It's an Indian profile. Look at its broad forehead there. Look at its nose. Look at its chin there. Okay? And you can see the petroglyphs there. All right, so let's look at this one petroglyph here in the middle of your screen. Let me zoom in on this. Right here in the middle of your screen, you see what looks like a lizard guy. Okay? There he is, right there in the middle of your screen. Okay? Now, every time I find that symbol, that's telling me that this is a solstice marker. This is a light and shadow marker. Okay? Every time I see that type of symbol, it is telling me that this is a light and equinox and solstice shadow panel. So that's one of the ways that you can tell, you know, that's something to look for when you're looking at these petroglyphs and you're trying to determine where the light and shadow markers are, if it's a holy mountain, if they're tracking the sun. You want to see on the position of the boulders, on which way the boulders are placed, on the orientation, the direction of where these boulders are lying at, are facing, because you know you want to see them facing towards the east, you know, because towards the morning sunrise. All right, so that's one thing that you want to look for in looking for stuff like this, is you want to examine the way it was put together. Okay, you want to look at what direction it's facing. All right, it's facing east. You got boulders on top. It's going to be a light and shadow marker. Now look at this. Okay, so I believe I might have more photographs of this, and this is all in my book. I go into more detail. But the shadow cuts right down, okay, down this way. Now there's a guy with a staff. You see that staff? You see the guy with the staff? And it's like he's making that coyote fly. Okay? He's got powers, and he's making that coyote fly. And when you go up top, he's made these other petroglyphs fly, and they're in the light. They're flying in the light now. You see that? I think I'll show more of this here. I think I got another photograph. Okay, and then we have a deer here. All right? And he's looking, you know, at the shadow. But my point here is this guy here, he's using the sunlight to raise these animals up into the light. So we have an Indian profile face, and all this stuff is cut out. Look at that there. See that over here on on the right side of your screen. Let me get it. Let me zoom in closer to this. You see that right there? See the chisel marks? See how they cut those marks out, those notches? Let me get a better zoom. You see that notch right there on the left side? See those notches? They cut that stuff out, man. They perfectly cut they shaved all these rocks out to make this shadow face. And you can even see an eye right there. You can see an eye. See his eye? Is that crazy or what? Everything is done for a reason. Let's move on. Here's what it looks like normal. And you can see on how these guys are flying in the light now. The deer. The deer and the solstice marker, I like to say, the light and shadow marker. They're both flying in the light. And actually, I think I have another photograph also. The sun actually aligns with the top of that guy's staff. It starts right there at the staff. That's when the light and shadow effect starts. Is the shadow cuts right down on top of the staff there. The light does, the sunlight. I think I have a photograph. It's all in my book. I explain it all more detail in my book. Okay, here we go. See that? See what I mean there? The light is right above that, and he's making the coyote fly. Isn't that cool? He's using his magical powers to make that coyote and the rest of the animals fly in the sunlight while it's creating an Indian profile face. Is that neat? That is so cool. And so precisely, how did these Hohokam Indians know how to do this? Right? Because they had the secret knowledge. They knew what was going on. They knew how to position the sun. They knew exactly the position of that sun was going to be. And they carved out, they got all these stones. They made this little rock formation out there. Out in the middle of the valley. Nothing's out there but these boulders. Right? They put all these boulders together. And they hammered out. They shaved all this stuff out. And they kept the rubble. They kept the debris. They kept all the falling chipped rocks. They piled it up and they put it behind it because it's sacred. You can't move it. It's sacred. It's sacred now. So you want to keep it all together. And they did. And all the rubble from the shaving is placed behind this rock formation. Here we go. Here's a little bit more detail on what I'm talking about. All this is in my book. See the sun marker there? And he's touching the chin now. You can see how the sun's been moving. You know, each photograph that I'm showing you, you know, I'm taking photographs as it's happening. Each 5 minutes, I'm taking a photograph of this. I'm out there. I'm watching what's going on. I knew exactly, you know, I knew exactly that it was a light and shadow marker. I didn't know exactly what it was going to do, but I knew something was going to happen, you know, because the way the boulders were placed there, and everything was chiseled out and oriented towards the east. I mean, it was such a giveaway, you know. So I had to go out there and find out what was going on. So September 22nd, I believe, is when I was out there. And this is what happens. Look at this. See the coyote? The coyote is now entering the light. The deer's flying in the light. The sun marker is flying in the light. And now he's touching the chin. You see that? He's now touching the chin of this Indian profile face. And is that incredible or what? That is just spectacular. And this still goes on today. No one knows exactly what that is out there. I don't even know if the archaeologist has even seen this or not. I don't know. I doubt it. You know, because he doesn't talk about it. You know, you only hear this here, folks. You know, only here is where you're going to find out this information, because the archaeologist isn't talking about this. So, I didn't see none of this in his book. Okay, so let's move on. Here is another panel, and that is oriented towards the east, okay? Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink. So this boulder is towards the morning sunrise. Now, these petroglyphs, they're sun markers. Okay, and it's showing the patterns. Right? That's when okay, the sun marker on the left, that is the what am I looking for? That is the winter equinox, and then over here, this other marker is where the summer equinox or solstice. The sun will align with both these markers, and like in the beginning of the winter, the sun will align on the left side of your screen. These markers on the left. Okay, and the sun will come up right above that. You can actually see a little circle right there. Okay, so the sun will align, will come up in the distance and align with these petroglyphs. Now, in the summer, the sun will align with this petroglyph. They're tracking the sun. The Hohokam Indians are tracking the sun, not to plant corn, but to understand the sky. They're sky watchers. They're waiting for these, to us, UFOs, to them, gods, if you will, you know. They're spirits, because that's what they call them. They call them spirits of the earth and sky, right? Are they saying spaceships? Are they saying technology? I mean, because like you gotta look at this also. Okay, because you know they didn't know UFOs back then, they didn't know spaceships back then, they didn't understand crafts back then. What did they understand? Let's think about their language. Let's think about what they understood in their day. So if they want to describe a spaceship, don't you think they would say a boat in the sky? Right? A boat for a craft. And wouldn't they draw like a boat that's flying in the sky, resembling a spaceship, resembling a craft, resembling some kind of device that's carrying people or creatures from another world to describe what they're talking about? Wouldn't they draw like a boat? That's a vessel. And they had boats back then, right? They had kayaks and stuff. But no, they're drawing like flying snakes, and they're drawing like flying orbs and things like that. Not spaceships, not crafts, but something completely different. Now, unfortunately, and this is sad, this panel is no longer there anymore. So take a good look at this. This is the last time you will see this, because somebody has graffitied it. Now you can already see that the paint. See the paint there? This is a past area. Someone has went in there and painted it up. And the last time I was there, I'm glad I took this photograph, because now the petroglyphs are gone. Somebody went in there and vandalized the petroglyphs. They spray painted it. And what the city of Phoenix did is they used a sandblaster, okay, to remove all the paint from the spray paint. And when they did that, it erased the petroglyphs. So this is the only photograph known and will ever be, you will ever see of what used to be there. These petroglyphs are no longer there anymore, which is sad, you know, because, and that's another reason, you know, I think, you know, that the archaeologist really isn't, talking about what's really out there because of vandalism and stuff like that. And, the other thing, too, is because, there's tombs out there full of gold. Okay, now, that was one of Charles Holbrook's, the first park ranger in the 1930s. That was one of his jobs, was to keep people away from these gold tombs. His son writes in his book about his father on how his father kept people away from these gold tombs, and that was some of his downfall. It was neat that he was finding all this stuff, and he doesn't want to keep it a secret. He wants to tell people about it, but on the downfall, when he did tell people about it, it just drew, the vandals over there to start digging stuff up, looking for this gold, That's what happened to these 4 crosses. So there was a rumor that the Spanish conquistador constructed these 4 crosses on South Mountain. It was just a rumor until one day Charles Holbrook found the 4 crosses standing on a hill. He looked down, he saw the crosses. He didn't tell people about it. He kept those secret. Until about a year later, the city of Phoenix drew this map and drew a new map of South Mountain and put the hill where the crosses were. And Holbrook made the mistake of telling the city of Phoenix, what's there? The 4 crosses is on that hill. Well, what happened there? That alerted the vandals looking for the gold, and they went in there and they destroyed the crosses. They dug a hole. They didn't find no gold, but they ruined the history. They destroyed the crosses. And for months, Charles was trying to get the city of Phoenix to go up there and rebuild the crosses. The city of Phoenix did not agree to go in there and spend their money, spend their time rebuilding these crosses. But they told Holbrook, they said, dude, if you and your friends want to go up there and rebuild the crosses, then you're more than welcome to do it. So it was like a big, his son writes, it was a big to-do. It was a big thing. All the Boy Scouts and all the families and the kids and everybody was out there, making these, rebuilding the 4 crosses, carrying concrete, carrying stones, boulders up this hill. His son writes that it was like a herd of ants, moving all this debris and all this stuff up the hill to make these crosses again. And the daughters and the mothers were down there making sandwiches and lemonade at the bottom of the hill for all these people. And unfortunately, Holbrook lost one of his friends due to a heart attack, rebuilding the crosses. And so, that's one of the reasons why the archaeologist, is not talking about this stuff. And remember, when I told you that I took my book, to the news, and, it's like, dude, you're talking about the gold tombs. We do not want this to happen again. Because when Holbrook died, the reason why you don't know about all this stuff, because back then, Holbrook was talking about it. He wrote it in his journals. He wrote it on his little flyer, his little book flyer they handed out to people when he did his tours. He told people about the gold. He told people about the Mayans. He told people about the spirits of the earth and sky. He talked about the giants. He talked about the sacrificing altars, and it drew people there to vandalize, So after his death, they buried all this information for 80 years in the Phoenix Library until little old me, investigating South Mountain, uncovered this information. Once again, not only did I prove it from going out there and finding all this stuff, but to back up my story, I found evidence from the first park ranger in the Phoenix Library, confirming that there's gold there, confirming there's tombs there, confirming that there's altars there, confirming that there was giants walking around the city of Phoenix back in the day, right? And they're trying to cover all this stuff up. They don't want people to know about that. So after his death, they stopped talking about it. They buried it. And what did they do? They made South Mountain a government park, right? That's how you do it. You make it a government park. There's gold there. That there's possible giants buried there, right? That whatever's buried on South Mountain is going to rewrite history, is going to change the history of Phoenix, of Arizona, is going to change the history on what we look at, what we were taught. It's not going to add up. All this proof that's out there, that's buried out there, is going to knock down all the stuff that the archaeologist wants to tell you, that the textbooks and all the stuff that we were meant to believe, on how Phoenix, rose and how Phoenix, came to be, and the history of Phoenix, Arizona, and all this cowboy stuff. But they're not going back even further than that, They're not telling you all that stuff. But the evidence is buried on South Mountain. And so they don't want people like me and like you going up there and digging up these tombs. Because why? What if you do find a giant skull, a giant skeleton out there? What if you do find, some gold tablets or gold, altar statues? What if you do find the evidence that the Mayans were here? What if you do find the evidence, And you know what? I'm just gonna real quick. In one of my shows, I talked about this little old lady that lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and she used to pay her rent, and she used to go shopping with little gold nuggets, right? Little gold nuggets in pouches that she said she found on South Mountain, right? This is like before Charles Holbrook. And so nobody knew where the gold was, but this one guy that was going up there and getting the gold for her. Okay, this was in the newspaper, 1966, I believe. And so the old lady told this guy where the gold was. The guy went up there, to get the gold down from his cave. Later on, turns out to be Padre's cave, full of gold, full of these little gold nuggets in these pouches, in these leather pouches, in Padre's cave. Told the guy where the cave is, went up there, paid a rent, blah, blah, and the guy told his son, took his son up there one day and says, you're going to be a rich boy, rich man someday. This is where all this gold is, After the lady dies, him and the son, they moved to California. Well, now the son has grown up 60 years later, all right, and the son is still remembering the gold that his dad showed him on South Mountain. So he comes back to Phoenix, all right, climbing South Mountain, looking for Padre Cave, looking for the gold that his father promised him, from the old lady that used to pay her rent and groceries with little gold stones, little gold nuggets. Okay, so he's up there on the mountain looking for this in 1966. Okay, he falls, hurts himself, and they have to call in a chopper to get this guy down off the mountain. And his whole excuse was he's looking for the gold pouches. He's looking for that cave that his father promised him where the gold was. Okay? So that's why, they made South Mountain a government park. So you can't go in there and start digging stuff up. Boy, I tell you what. If it wasn't a government park, yes, I would be out there every day digging. Okay? I would be out there digging all these tombs that I found, okay, and so and one of the things is, I think I said it before, that the Phoenix Lights is guarding the gold that's there, waiting for the Mayans to return. But I just think that we need to open up one tomb, okay. I think ASU people, the archaeologist people there, ASU students, or somebody, we need to pressure the archaeologists, okay. Somebody needs to do something. Okay, because the information is there. The history is there. I think we need to open up at least one tomb. Not all of them, at least the ones that I found. There's more up there, right? But I found 4 of them that I verified. I think we need to open up at least one tomb to see what's there, all right? Just for curiosity, just to get our history back, just to understand what's going on, how holy this mountain is, and actually what the Indians, the Hohokam Indians is, because this is part of our past. This is our history. Okay, I don't think it's right to keep all this information away from people. All right, this is the reason why I'm bringing this information to you. This is why I'm doing all. I'm not making any money from this. I'm not making any money from the book. I told the publishers to give my money to the foster kids in Phoenix. I'm not out here to make money or to get famous. I'm out here to get the information to you and have you come down here and check all this out. And maybe, just maybe, either I'm going to see it, or maybe when I'm long gone, someone is going to go in there and dig up one of these tombs on South Mountain and verify what's there. We need to do that at least once. We need to dig up one tomb just to see what's there and, just to verify our history. Whew, yeah, I can ramble. Okay, so this is high up on the mountain. This is high up on South Mountain. All right, so this is located at the Two Peaks. There's a spot on South Mountain. It's called the Two Peaks. Okay, two mountain peaks. All right, and this is a very complex, detailed map. All right, this actually talks about the rising of the sun. All right, it's a calendar on how to predict or how to understand or when these UFO lights, these UFOs are going to come to the mountain. This is, I call it South Mountain Stonehenge. This is like a Stonehenge. Okay, so it's all aligned with the sun. All right, it's a calendar. I go into great, there's too much to talk about on my shows. So I'm just going to briefly talk about it here. But more of it is in my book. I go into great detail in my book on how to understand this petroglyph. But these lines there, you can see the line that is aligned with the sun. Okay, so that sun will align with this marker on the stone that's coming up between the four peaks in the background. So the four peaks, the morning summer solstice sun will arise in between the four peaks way out there in the distance. You see that? My last show, I talk about the four peaks, and I show you how the four peaks are aligned or are together. There are four peaks, and the sun will come up right in the middle. All right, and it's also aligning. The sun will come up and align with this mark here on this calendar. You see the spiral doorway, and you see the spiral and how it merges around. Okay, I go into more detail, like I said before, on how to understand this rock panel. I call it a hinge, or what, if you will, like a petroglyph hinge. But it's like I said, it's a map. It's a calendar, and it's tracking these UFOs with the sun. This is on South Mountain. This is right on the edge of the two peaks on South Mountain. That's on the other side. It's quite a hike. It's not hard. It's not easy to get there. It's quite a hike. It takes about maybe a couple hours to reach this spot here. But it's worth it if you can get out there. If you can find it, it's worth it. And this is the interpretation of this rock on how to understand it. And it's a calendar. It's marking the sun. It's tracking the sun. It's a calendar. So here we go. So here's all the sunrises, right? Because it's oriented towards the east, right? Towards the morning sunrise. Okay, so we have the morning summer solstice. That aligns there. And then the morning equinox, that aligns right there in the middle. Okay, and then the winter solstice, if you will. So I might have been backwards. Now that I look at this, I might have been backwards on that last explanation on that panel. The ones that got spray painted that aren't there anymore. So the petroglyphs on the left, that was for the morning summer solstice. And then the petroglyphs on the right, that was for the winter solstice. So I was a little backwards on that last interpretation there. My bad. But here, it explains on how the sun will align with these lines here, and then in the middle, it's a calendar. And then we have the spiral. The spiral goes around. So more of it, more information is in my book. It goes into great detail on this. Okay, so we'll move on. Make sure you get my book to understand more of what I was talking about there. Okay, so this light and shadow panel, this is interesting. So looking at this for face value, looking straight on with this, we have a hole. I don't know if it's natural. I don't think it's natural. I don't know if it's carved out or not. I don't know how that hole got there. But if you look real closely, at one time there was a spiral carved around that hole going into the hole. It was a spiral. It's a doorway. It's an emergence point. You can actually see what it looks like a lizard man going into the hole, going into that spiral doorway, going into the underworld. We have a coyote there to the left of your screen, and he's looking up at that hole. He's waiting for things to come out of that hole. Over here on the left, we have, see the squiggly lines and stuff like that? Okay? That is what we see in the skies today. That is like a UFO entity, a UFO creature. That squiggly line there. That is what that petroglyph is representing. It's representing a spirit form. Over here, on the bottom, there's more spirit forms there. And right here, we have the more spirits coming out of this rock. To us, we would call them UFOs. To the Indians, we would call them spirits. Okay? And so it's all carved on this panel, and it's all oriented towards this hole. The emergence point, the doorway into the stone, into the underworld. Now, up on top, look how this is shaved. Let's examine this right here for a minute. You see how all that's cut? Okay, so this wall is about, I don't know, like 20 feet high. Okay, and on top of it is this boulder. All right, this boulder sits on top of it. All right, and it's like on a ledge. Okay, so it's coming away from that boulder. It's coming away. It's coming out. It's angled out. It's resting on top of that boulder, but it's facing out to catch the sun. Okay, and when you look at this, you can see on how it's been all shaved. It's been all cut out. Okay, now this is interesting too, because I found, and this boulder is huge. Again, we're talking a big, massive cut boulder stone that has been picked up and placed on top of a 20-foot wall. All right, where the spiral doorway is carved, where the coyote is looking at, where the lizard man is merging into the door. It's a 20-foot wall, and there's a huge boulder stone placed on top of it. Okay, and this is carved. All this stuff has been chiseled out. Now, there is another huge boulder slab of stone that has been cut out of a big, massive wall behind this. Okay, and looking at what's going on here, I think the first slab that's behind this slab is a mistake. Okay, I think they made a mistake because you could see chisel marks. You could see what they were trying to do, but I think it was a mistake, and so they stopped it, and they left that big slab of stone and everything behind this boulder now that is on top of this 20-foot wall. All right, if you can understand that. There's two big slabs of stone. One they made a mistake on. That sits behind us. One they made correctly, and that's the one that we're looking at now. And this has been carved out, chiseled out. You can see all that for a reason. Let's see what the reason is. Okay, so here we go. You can see now there's stones. There's that wall up there. What we were just looking at just a minute ago is that right there up on top. Okay, you can see how big that boulder is right there. So we were just looking at this area here from on top. Okay, you see how all that's been cut out and how all that's been chiseled out? And this is a big stone boulder on top of a 20-foot wall. All right, maybe 30 foot. This wall is pretty high. It took me a while to climb up there and take photographs of all this stuff. And then we have more boulders, more little pieces of boulders sticking out this way. See all this stuff? This is not just there. It's put there for a reason. Okay? They do everything for a reason. That's for a reason. And it's to catch the sun, because this is oriented east. We're looking east here. And there's that big wall that is carved on. There's the hole. There's that spiral hole that we're looking at. Okay? There's the hole right there. And then right above it is a huge, massive cutout boulder. And other boulders that have been laying over there to the right of it. Okay? All right, now here we go. Here's what it looks like from a distance. Yeah, my stuff's backwards now. I'm way over my time limit. Okay. All right, so look how big that stone is. Let's examine this for a minute. Look how big that boulder is. Okay, now like I said before, this is the second boulder. This is the second boulder. There's another boulder behind that boulder that has been shaved and chipped just like that. But I believe that it was a mistake. And so they used this boulder to place on top where they correctly did to get the effect. Okay, now those little boulders, those little things there to the right of your screen. Oh, I'm doing it again here. Now you can see what those little boulders are doing there. Those little cutout chips of rock. They're creating this arrow. See that? See the shadow there? This is when the sun, the equinox sun, is just above these rocks. And it's casting a shadow now. And it's pointing at this stone. It's pointing at the circle. Now, if you look real closely, you can see another Indian profile face here. He's looking down. You have to tell your phones, tell your phones or your television or your computer, whatever you're looking at right now, tilt it to the right. Okay, and when you do that, you will see his forehead, you will see his Mayan nose, you will see his lips, and you will see his chin. Okay? When you tilt it, you will see that this Indian shadow face is looking down at the emergence point, looking down at the hole. So turn your phones to the right and look at it that way. You can clearly see the forehead, you can see the nose, you can see where the eye would be, and he's looking down at that hole. That is the effect that they were trying to create. And look at the boulder, dude. Look at that. That has been picked up and placed there. Come on now, right? And look how it's been all shaved and cut and carved, just to make that face looking down at that hole. Let's zoom in on that. See how it's all cut out? Look at that. I mean, that's pretty ingenious, dude. You know, that's pretty incredible. Look how they carved, they chiseled all that out. And look at the size of the stone. Look at that. And there's more stones over here to the left. Okay? All that is there for a reason. This is not natural. This has been placed here. And these little stones. Everything is oriented towards that hole. It's pretty incredible. And, you know, for someone else to, you know, to see that, they would just walk on by it. You know, they wouldn't even give this a second thought. But, and this is high up. This is in coyote land. All right. There is coyotes. As a matter of fact, there's like another boulder, another huge boulder like that one. Okay. On the ground facing this wall, facing this 20-foot wall. Okay. It's on the ground. Okay. And it's been shaved out too like that. All right. So maybe they messed up 3 times. I don't know. I don't know the reason for that, but it's on the ground. So maybe they couldn't get it up there or something. But it's cut out, and it's on the ground, and it's facing that wall. And you can actually crawl up under there. I crawled up under there. And it's actually a coyote den. And there are coyotes up there. So this is high up on South Mountain in a secluded place. I accidentally found this, exploring. And, once I found out that it was a light and shadow, then, on the equinox, I took all my equipment. I carried all my camera and my tripod and everything else, and I got up there before the sunrise, and I set up just to get that shot. And this has probably never been photographed before. This is probably the first time ever it's been recorded. I did that back in 2005, I believe. 2005, 2006. It's the first time ever that's been recorded. Here's another light and shadow panel. Now, let's look at this closely. This is on the if you remember, like my last show, we talked about the Indian, the profile face and the Indian and the arrow piercing that hill with the shadow. Remember we talked about that last show? This is the same boulder that the Indian was carved on when the guy flying in the light, sticking his staff in the light. This is the same boulder, but on the left side. All right, this is on the left side. And here we have okay, let's look at the top here. Okay, the shadow rock arrow. All right, see now that's another stone sticking out to capture the sun and its shadow, right? Because it's sticking out from the wall, oriented towards the morning sunrise. Okay, we have the shadow rock. Right, now we come down, we have a natural crack in the stone. Look at that arrow there, the left arrow on your screen. Natural crack in the stone. Okay. Now next down we have the lizard man. Okay, we have the lizard man, and he's holding. There's a sun. Now let's zoom in. It's hard to see. Let's zoom in on this. Okay, so he's holding a UFO orb and a sun. You can see the sun on the top left of this UFO orb, or this phoenix light, if you will. Okay, you see the sun? And that's the morning sunrise. And it's coming up over this UFO orb. And we know it's a UFO orb because not only is it circle, but it's got that dot in the middle. You see the dot in the middle? A lot of you people are filming these lights in the sky, and you see the dots in the middle. Well, you're looking at a petroglyph panel here, talking about the exact same thing. Okay? Now, again, look at this here. Let's look at the sun marker. Okay, remember the last one that we looked at with the Indian profile face and the guy with his staff, and he's making the coyotes fly in the light, and he's making that sun marker fly in the light also? Here we go again. Here is the same symbol. Okay, the same symbol again. This is the sun marker. This is how we know that this is a light and shadow panel, because of this symbol here, the sun marker. Okay, the sun marker petroglyph. And also, obviously, this boulder is facing east. Okay, facing the morning sunrise. All right, okay. Now, here's another crack. Look at the crack here. You see the crack? That crack is going up. Let's follow that crack all the way up to this natural crack up on top. You can barely see that crack, but the arrow is hitting that crack there, okay? Remember, everything is for a reason. Nothing is just by chance. They did all this. All right? So this is what it looks like when it's just plain, okay? This is how to understand this rock art. We have the sun marker, we have the lizard man holding an orb, and the sun is oriented towards the east, coming up for the sunrise. We have the natural crack up on top, And we have the shadow marker also on top to catch the sun shadow. Okay. Now, let's look about what it does. Now, here, September 22nd, I filmed this in 2005. Now, we can see on how the rock, the boulder up on top, the light and shadow boulder rock art is hitting this crack. Okay, see how it's oriented? See the crack there? Not the crack, but the shadow. Let's concentrate on the shadow. And the sun is hitting that rock that's been up on top, the shadow rock that we just saw. And it's casting the shadow down on this rock. Now, this shadow, it actually started on the bottom here. Okay, this is a late photograph. This is a still photograph of the video that I took in September 22nd in 2005. And so the shadow will start at the beginning of where these yellow arrows are. And the shadow will travel up as time goes by, will travel up the side of this crack and disappear into the natural stone. And notice how the sun marker, the sun petroglyph marker, right there, the guy in the middle, his tail is matching this crack. So that's what he's telling us, he's telling us. So the shadow will start at the bottom and will move along up the side of the rock as the sun moves along the sky, and the shadow will end inside the rock, inside the crack. And it's telling us that this is the emergence point. This is the doorway. This major crack up on top is the doorway to the underworld. Isn't that amazing? It's really something to see when you're out there watching it. It takes a while, but it's worth it. Okay, wow, are we done? We are done with the petroglyphs. Wow, okay. So hopefully you guys, found that fascinating and neat, because I certainly did. And like I said, more of that information is in my book. More photographs of the light and shadow, more explanations on the Stonehenge that I call up there, the calendar, and how to read it, and everything else like that. Probably the first time ever it's been recorded that way. And so yeah, make sure you go out there and get the book, The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Landscape for the Spirits, The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. So yeah, go out there and get that book. It talks about more of the petroglyphs. It talks about the Phoenix, Arizona history. Explains about the giants, talks about Charles Holberg. So it's really a neat little book, with a bunch of information in there. 15 years of research. There's lots of photographs of petroglyphs, how to understand the petroglyphs, where Phoenix actually came from. Because they say that Phoenix is a fiery bird that rose from the past of the former civilization. They don't tell you what the former civilization was, okay? I do, okay? And this is from 15 years of serious in-the-field research. Not just from hearsay, but documented research. Out there in the field, out there on South Mountain, out there watching the skies of Phoenix, documenting the UFOs, understanding Charles Holberg. And it's a neat little story. Talks about how there was an Indian war up there with the Spanish and the Indians, and see the look at the artifacts that I discovered up there on South Mountain from that war, okay, or that little battle, if you will, that happened up there. So yeah, all that stuff, all the photographs is real. All the stuff you can find in the book that's up there on South Mountain today shows you where the talks about the tombs, okay. Talks about the tombs, talks about the giants. And like I said, man, we need to open up one tomb. Whether it's in my lifetime, whether it's in the next lifetime, I don't know, dude. But this is our history. We need to open up one tomb just to see what's there. Okay? So, yeah. All right, so here we go. Woo, boy, that was fun. Traveled all over your screen. Bet you won't see that in any other show but this one. Okay, so this UFO, to wrap up the show, I always like to show a UFO video. Now, I believe this happened in New York. Okay, let's get this rolling. It's muted. Okay, so look at these lights here. All right. So this happened in New York, I think this year. And those of you who have been following me know I filmed the exact same type of lights going over our apartments in 2019. Look at that. Look how they're staying together. Oh, look at that. How one disappeared and then came back. Okay, there's a lot of people. Oh, it's got to be Chinese lanterns. Well, dude, Chinese lanterns aren't going to disappear and then reappear. All right, stuff like that. They're not going to stay in formation the way these lights are doing. Look at that. Because if these are balloons or flares or Chinese lanterns or any of that nonsense like that, then they clearly would be flying away from each other by now. All right, but yet these things are staying in formation. Look at that. Look at this, okay? They are staying together. Okay? Let's see. I don't know if there's another one. They are staying together. All right? Here comes another one following it to the right. All right? So they would be blown away from each other. They would not be staying together. Okay? I think they start seeing another one here. Yeah. See, there's another one coming. These are not crafts. These are not spaceships. Look at that. Look at that. See that? Look how they're in formation that way. And so a lot of people would think, oh no, it's in a triangle. It's a triangle. It's a craft. There's a triangle there. It's a spaceship. It's a craft. No, these things like to fly in pyramid formations. You know, just because you see, 3 lights out there in the shape of a triangle doesn't mean that it's a fully shaped triangle. It just means that each light is in a pattern like that. It's in a formation like that. Okay? And they're lit up because that's just them. Look at the fireflies. Look at the lightning bugs, okay? They were created to light up, all right? Same with these light beings, okay? Especially if they're absorbing energy. Okay? Of course they're going to light up. Right? I mean, if we had a belly full of energy, I'm sure we would glow also. Okay? So yeah, they are here for the energy. These people must be next to an energy fault line. And these things are coming out of a mountain. I'm sure there's a mountain to the right of them somewhere. And they just came out of that mountain. The mountain with a fault line in it. Okay? And so yeah, they're not crafts. They're not spaceships. These things are alive. They know who's watching them. They know who's not watching them. This is how they are getting away most of the time with being in our skies without being noticed. Is because they understand who's watching them and who's not. Isn't that neat? It's a great video for a cell phone, right? Because I always tell everybody, look, dude, try to use a video camera. Video cameras are the best to film UFOs. I know a lot of people don't carry video cameras when they go out. I do. I always have a video camera with me everywhere I go, because, you never know when these things are going to show up above your head, so you always want to be ready. But today, people, all they carry is phones, and they have their cameras, and that's all well and good. But it doesn't capture, you can't zoom in very well. It doesn't give the UFOs justice. Because I'm sure those lights are a lot bigger, all right, is a lot bigger than what this camera is picking up. All right, so the camera phones just doesn't do UFO videos justice. So if you can, try to carry a video camera with you and learn how to upload it onto computers and learn how to upload it on Facebook and YouTube and share the links that way. Isn't that neat? That is incredible. That is just neat. Let's zoom in on this. Look at that. You can tell it's not a fire. Okay? I think the guy just moved his camera. You can tell it's not a fire. It's a light beam. Okay, here comes another one. This is the exact same type of sighting that me and my wife filmed in 2019 in Phoenix, Arizona. These things, one after another, just kept coming, going across the sky. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that neat? Okay, let's see if there's any comments here. Let me check the comments real quick as you guys watch this. Okay, I haven't seen any comments, but okay, so we won't talk about any comments tonight in tonight's show. But look at that. Isn't that fascinating? That is some neat stuff. So I'm well over into 2 hours. I'm way over my mark here. So I'm going to end the show on this note. So thank you guys so much for watching. And, make sure that you go out there and, film these lights, film UFOs, send the videos to me. If you have any petroglyphs that you want me to look at, please send them my way. I'll be next week. I'll be talking about more of light and shadow panels from my book. Make sure that you go out there and get my book, The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Landscape for the Spirits, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix. And so we're going to end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave your comments below. Make sure that you follow and share the video. Make sure that you find my YouTube channel, The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. Please subscribe to that. Please check out my website. And thank you guys so much. And we will see you guys next time. We're going to end it off here. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.